Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is David Halperin. I am the Executive Director of Israel Policy Forum. Over the past 2 months, Israel Policy Forum has organized weekly video briefings on a range of topics in Israeli politics and policy, drawing as many as 700 participants, consistently ranking among the top Israeli politics-related webinars, according to the Jewish Insider's weekly reporting. And for all of our supporters on this call, as well as to everyone returning from previous conversations, I want to thank you for your continued engagement with our work. Today's event is the kickoff of a new Annexation Watch Tuesday video briefing series. This new initiative will focus on responses to West Bank annexation and the possibility of West Bank annexation from important actors, including Israeli politicians, Palestinian leaders, the Arab world, and the international community. At the swearing in of the new Israeli coalition this past Sunday, Prime Minister Netanyahu affirmed that this will be the government to extend sovereignty to the West Bank. And as we approach the July 1st date specified in the coalition agreement as the day on which formal annexation deliberations can begin, it is all the more critical that we amplify the high-level voices from the political arena and the diplomatic community who are raising alarm about annexation and its impact on the future. Everything we've been doing and will continue to do on this front depends on your generous support, especially in the midst of this unprecedented global crisis, whether it be this video briefing series, our podcast, Israel Policy Pod, which now publishes twice weekly, and our young professional network, MK Aida Touma-Sliman, which continues to convene regular virtual gatherings, whether it's the Koplo column, which has become the go-to resource for weekly commentary and analysis on Israeli politics and policy, as well as our work in Washington with policymakers, which has continued remotely during this time. If you've not done so already, I would like to encourage you to make a contribution in support of our work, and you can do that at israelpolicyforum.org/giving. And thank you all again for joining us. Now, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's conversation, Israel Policy Forum's own Dr. Shira Efron. Shira is a policy advisor to Israel Policy Forum, as well as serving as a visiting fellow at the Institute for National Security Studies in Tel Aviv, and has served as a special advisor on Israel at the RAND Corporation. Most recently, as many on this call will know, she recently co-authored a new study for Israel Policy Forum called In Search of a Viable Option, evaluating the outcomes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We are in for a special, unique conversation today. I want to thank all of our guests, which Shira will engage today, and thank you all once again for joining us. Shira, I will now turn to you. You have the floor. Thank you all.
Thank you, David, and thank you everyone for joining us. And I especially thank our speakers who took time this evening of their busy schedules to join us. So, good evening to everyone in Israel and good afternoon in New York. Before we begin the discussion, I just want to remind everyone that we really do encourage audience questions. So if you would like to ask a question, please type it in the Q&A box that is located at the bottom of your screen. And if you're joining by phone, just feel free to email your questions to info@ipforum.org. Now, we will have a recording of this session on our website, which you can listen to and share later. As David mentioned, a new government was sworn in Israel on Sunday. And I think we've seen a lot of reports about the new coalition, but with this new government, there's also a new opposition. Comprised of political parties representing a broad range of ideologies, and we'll talk about that. I feel very fortunate and honored to be joined by 3 representatives of the opposition. I'll introduce them briefly, alphabetically, and then we will jump right in. Ram Ben Barak is a member of Knesset for Yesh Atid Telem. He has previously served as head of the operational directorate and deputy director of the Mossad, and as director general of 2 ministries, the Ministry of Intelligence and Strategic Affairs. He was also previously a visiting research fellow at the Brookings Institution Saban Center for Middle East Policy in Washington. Major General Yair Golan is a member of Knesset for the Democratic Choice Party and former deputy chief of staff for the IDF. He served for 37 years in military service and has had numerous roles, including head of the Northern Command, head of the Operations Directorate, and I think what's most relevant for our conversation today, commander of the Judea and Samaria Division. And last but not least, Aida Touma-Sliman is a member of Knesset for the Joint List. She's also a prominent feminist activist in Israel, having founded the Women Against Violence Association and established the first shelters in Israel for battered Arab women and Arab female teens in distress. She was the first woman elected to the High Follow-Up Committee for Arab Citizens of Israel. She's also former editor of the Al-Ittihad newspaper, and if there's a commentaries are not enough, in 2007 she was a nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize. Ram, Yair, Aida, thank you again for joining us today. I want to start, the focus of this series is really the annexation, but as we spoke before we started the program, you're facing quite a few challenges now in the opposition. I'm curious if you can, each one of you, and we'll start with Yair because you have to leave earliest. But how do you see the future of the opposition in this difficult time, especially given that you, Yair, and you ran a list that broke up after the elections. Aida, you ran in a joint list that in the first of the 3 rounds ran as a separate list. What do you see as, the role of the opposition, the main challenges, and the future of opposition now? Yair.
I would say the following. First, it's going to be very tough in the Knesset, in our parliament, to work and to achieve anything concerning any policy of the government, of the future government, of the huge government. Just going to be extremely hard. But we have no intention to give up, and personally I'm going to establish a caucus, Shidula in Hebrew, against the annexation, behalf of separating ourselves from the Palestinians in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. So we will do our best in the Knesset, and it's not much, I have to admit. I would say that the most important arena to fight annexation is the public arena. And concerning the public arena, it's going to be as tough as well, but with more prospects for achievements. And here I think that we need to work with other organizations, including the IPF, and many others, in order to create the public opinion, or to shape the public opinion against the annexation. Most Israelis, as far as I understand, do not understand the ramification of annexation, do not understand what is going to be annexed to Israel, do not understand what is the reaction of Jordan, the future reaction of Jordan or Egypt, or any other consequence out of this annexation. It just sounds, well, why not? It's like, it's in a way, it's a very childish approach to the destiny of Israel. No one is, well, I would say that up to now, there was no serious public discussion about annexation in Israel. Maybe I'm wrong, but my friends here will say their opinion, but basically I think there is no discussion. It's a kind of a new policy out of the nowhere. And I would like to conclude this part of my part while saying that I do not believe that Netanyahu is really devoted to annexation. I would say it's a kind of political tool from his toolbox, and nothing more, nothing. Well, it's just about, like in Seinfeld, it's about nothing. It's about, just creating his ability to handle the daily news life of Israel. It's about, a political maneuvering more than anything else, and it's a kind of sweet chocolate bar for the far right, and he has no intention to give them this chocolate bar, but to put it in his hands and negotiate with them for any political achievement, future political achievement he would like to achieve. So I think this is the story. And yes, it's put us in a very ambiguous situation, because on the one hand, we need to treat this threat in a very serious manner. On the other hand, maybe we just help Netanyahu to shape the Israeli public arena instead of avoiding him this achievement. So we are in a dilemma in a way.
Thank you, Yair, very much. You gave me there's so much information, so much follow-up that I want to ask you on this. I will just say that I agree with you that I think, Netanyahu has been very status quo about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and has not annexed anything until now, even though he has had multiple opportunities. We are getting, though, mixed messages, and there are reports that Ron Dermer, Israel's ambassador in Washington, is working very, very hard to lobby for annexation before the elections in the U.S. So I think that even if Netanyahu maybe doesn't want to do it, it's more imminent threat that we've seen before. We will go back to what this caucus can do, who will be your partners, and what type of public campaign you think is needed now, because as you know, these are all things that IPF is working on very seriously, but there's not a lot of time to act if we're talking about early July. Ram, Aida, more maybe even general, even before we jump into annexation, or maybe you want to pick up of where Yair started, talking specifically about the annexation challenge. How do you see your role in the opposition? Let's start with Aida.
Well, first of all, I do not agree very much with Yair by saying that he doesn't think that Netanyahu is serious about annexation. I do believe that Netanyahu has been preparing for this step for more than 2 years now. And if you follow his steps in the last 2 years, you can see very clearly that it is directing to this point. And we have said that many times, we have warned from that many times. And I don't know if you remember, in September, last September, before the elections, we had a session in the parliament where Netanyahu was challenged by the idea of annexation coming from your party, if I don't, or from Kahol Lavan at that point. And Netanyahu said that very clearly, that he said it in his speech, that you do not go for annexation in just, in a rapid way. You need to do a lot. That's what he said. You need to do a lot of preparations and to lay the ground so that when you do that, and we are doing this, he said, by our relations with the Arab world, our relations with our friends in the United States. It seems to be that this was, not seems to be, I'm sure this was the plan in the last 2 years. If you look about the moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and what was the symbolic fact that is around this move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, then you have the nation-state law, which says there, if you read it carefully, and that's why our demand is to uphold that law and to finish it, and not to create any changes in it, because it starts with Eretz Israel. It starts with this ideological approach that says very clearly that Netanyahu wants to annex lands from the Palestinian territory. It goes there, and he makes the mixture between sometimes Eretz Israel, sometimes State of Israel, and sometimes Israel. And you can see there very clearly that what he is talking about a big Israel, the big Israel. I don't want to say the greater Israel, because he's gonna leave some small areas not to be annexed, so that the demographic balance will not be sabotaged in this, meaning taking more Palestinians. The third thing that is very clear was also a sign in that process was the annexation discourse that existed even in the 20th Knesset, where more and more laws were brought into the table in the Knesset, talking about annexing settlements and different settlements.
Sorry, Aida. So you disagree? You think it's a real threat?
Yes, I think it's a real threat, and I think that Netanyahu wants to use the open opportunity that is existing now before the election in the United States, and the more talks about that Trump might lose this election, urges him to make his steps even faster. This is what I believe.
And what do you think? I mean, Yair just suggested very concrete, at least trying, constructive ideas that even if this threat is serious or not serious, what you can do as opposition to try to block the annexation. What do you respond to this? How do you think you can work as part of the opposition to try to prevent the annexation?
Well, we have to be clear about it. First of all, we don't have an opposition in Israel. We have oppositions in Israel. We have more than one opposition, because part of the opposition, as you said, is very far to the right, even from this government. And I'm not sure that all of us, even those who are centered to the left, like the Joint List and Meretz, of course, Meretz, I know what they think, but also Yesh Atid, do we agree totally on the issue of annexation with all the members? I think here we have a discussion that we need, but for sure for us in the Joint List, this is the most challenging issue for in the next few months, because when we are talking about annexation, we are talking about officially and formally and eventually creating the apartheid state. No one who is crying about democracy in Israel, about formal democracy, not even, you know, the real democracy that all of us look for, at least. The formal democracy, it might not be able to exist under the fact of annexation and apartheid regime. You cannot talk about solutions on social and economic crisis that we are facing after COVID-19 crisis if we do not say it very clearly. Annexation is ending any possibility for a political agreement with the Palestinians, meaning continuous occupation, meaning endless crisis that will be, both sides will be paying a huge price for it.
I do want to go back to this, but I want to move to Barak. But the question is, you know, what if it's a very, like a tiny mini annexation, using the euphemism, applying the law or extending sovereignty over Ma'ale Adumim? Is this also the end of the two-state solution in your view? Is that the position that you and your party take? And I mean,
You're
this
talking
is
to
for
me
Aida
now?
because you mentioned the A word. Ram, I'll get to it in 1 minute. But Aida, you said, apartheid, and that's a very strong word. When you're extending sovereignty over an area that is within the Israeli consensus, is your analysis still valid, that is the end of a two-state solution?
What do you mean in the Israeli consensus? Settlement is in the Israeli consensus. Does it make it legal? Does it making it accepted internationally? Does that mean the Palestinians should coexist with it? No.
Okay, Ram, let's move to you.
The real issue here is that, Netanyahu is not so stupid. He will not annex Judea and Samaria entirely. And it will move forward with, annexing the formerly certain neighborhoods of Jerusalem, Male Domim, Modi'in Illit, all kind of settlements very close to the Green Line, things which are in the midst of the Israeli consensus, like a Gush Etzion. And that's the way he will explain the rest of the world. That's all right. We did what is reasonable, what was accepted by the Palestinians in former negotiations, and what was heavily accepted by President Trump according to his future plan. So I will say that no matter how we look at the subject, let's say that Netanyahu he is serious. He will do it in a way or in a manner of crawling annexation.
I think we all agree to this, but I do want to let transition to Ram Ben Barak first, and we'll get back to both of you in a moment. Thank you, Aida and Yair. Ram, to you, please.
Okay. Well, we are going to. It's going to be very difficult in the opposition. First, we have the opposition very wild with right hand and with left hand, with Yair in one hand and Bennett in the other hand. It will not be easy. Netanyahu said, and Benny Gantz is agreed that if there will be an extension, it will go to the Knesset, and in the Knesset they can pass everything they want because there is a minority for this move. And if you ask me, and I believe if you ask Yair too, we think that that in agreement, in a total agreement, we all think that the Jordan Valley must stay in Israeli hands because of the security of Israel.
I have to say that I do not think the same.
Let's wait with the argument in a moment.
I think that in any agreement that it will be in the future, the Jordan Valley must stay in Israeli hand because I think that the border of Israel, the east border of Israel must be the Jordan Valley, and I think it's good to Israel. It's very important to Israel, and I think that it's good to the Palestinian state that will be in the end of the process. There will be, I hope, a Palestinian state because we cannot allow ourselves to be open to the East Muslim world that Jordan and Iraq and Syria and everything, and Iran in the end, that I think that if we will leave this border, it's only a matter of time that this Palestinian state will be a terror state, and because of that, I think that in an agreement we need to stay there, but it must be in agreement. You can't do it on one side. Look, to make an agreement between Israel and the United States about a Palestinian territory, what happens if there will be a democratic president in 1 year? He can say, I'm not agree for this. And in this case, what will happen? It's not really any station. It's something that it's something between Trump and Netanyahu. Because of that, I don't believe in this kind of paper. I think that we have to stay there. I think we have to establish our settlement in the Jordan Valley. I said in the Jordan Valley, not in the West Bank. I'm not agree to the settlement in the West Bank, but in Jordan Valley, yes. But we have to achieve an agreement with the Palestinian, and in the agreement, we have to keep the Jordan Valley to us. It's important to the Israeli security. It's important to the Palestinian security too. This is my opinion.
No, but I want to follow up because I think both your fellow panelists here and Knesset members not necessarily agreeing with you. If the Jordan Valley is, you need it as a security interest, right? Previous negotiations spoke about Israel holding on to the Jordan Valley as part of an agreement for 25 years, for 50 years, some have spoken about 100 years. But why do you need settlements there? Why do you need, I mean, if we're talking about a security presence, it's very different from having Israeli sovereignty there. And why? And I'm curious as to why, which Palestinian leadership would agree to this?
First of all, why not? If you have such a large border, it's very important to have a community over there because it helps you to hold the land there and to hold the security there. There is not a lot of Palestinian in the Jordan Valley. Only, I think, if I'm not wrong, 70,000 Palestinians live in the Jordan Valley right now. And I think that it's very important for Israel to have this. It's a road to Jerusalem. It's a road to the Yam HaMelech, to the Dead Sea, and I think it doesn't hurt anyone that we have a community over there. I don't call the villages in the Jordan Valley. I don't call them a settlement. I call them villages. I call them community. And I don't think that they disturb anything. I think they keep the stability. They have to secure the border, and I don't see any problem with this. But in agreement, maybe we need to give something in somewhere else. But in agreement, I think that we need to stay there.
I do want to remind people that you can type in your questions in the chat. I have a few follow-up questions. It's interesting that even on your side, even I think to an American audience, it's quite strange, right? There's a government that's quite uniform in its approach, and then there's an opposition that is very heterogenic and thinks very differently on this issue. And even here, I'm sensing disagreement between all of you. Aida, I think that you wanted to respond to what Ram said, so please go ahead. And then Yair, I do want to go back to you on the public campaign and what can be done between now and July 1st if this is a real date. And I do have one question for all of you as an Israeli citizen who's voted in the last 3 elections since I moved back here. I feel that all last 3 rounds of elections were about to Bibi or not to Bibi. No one spoke about the 2-state solution, about ties with the Palestinians. You had on the right, you had promises on annexation, but I don't think I've heard your party speak about it. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing about a caucus now and a public campaign. And to me, as a citizen, where were you on this? So I put a lot on your plate. Let's start with that.
Well, I would like first to start with the fact that exactly what you've seen reflects why there was and still a this is the political crisis that exists in Israel. The political crisis is that nobody put a real alternative program or agenda to what Netanyahu was leading in the last 3 elections, except us, I believe. Everybody was talking about corruption. Everybody was talking about anything except Bibi. Everybody was talking about we cannot have a prime minister who is who has charges against him, as if you take out the charges, everything is good about the rest. Netanyahu was giving the people a vision of Israel, greater Israel, a vision of annexation, a vision of continuous occupation, a vision of an endless, insecure situation for the citizens, and nobody was telling the people we have an alternative from the other political forces that were existing at that point and leading. And that's why Gantz ended up crawling into Netanyahu's government, because the minute he broke the idea of I cannot move him and he is going to be the prime minister, if you cannot beat him, then join him. That was the idea, I think, that brought him. It shows also again that we will have a very challenging times and difficulties because we are not agreeing, at least on the issue of annexation. You have seen this. I mean, maybe Yair Golan and me are more close in the idea of how bad the idea of annexation, and that it is going to ruin any opportunity for a real political agreement. While Ram is saying, and Ram is not representing himself only, but let's say the largest party in the opposition now, who is saying that annexation, but with the agreement of the Palestinians. Come on, you know very well it's not going to happen. This is the way occupiers think, that why not? If we can do it, why not to do it? If it is a security issue, I am not a person who is coming from militaristic approach, or someone who is believing that this is the way to secure the citizens. Israel has been holding this way of thinking, of bringing security in such a way for 72 years, and we are only seeing deterioration of the capability of military forces to secure the citizens. The only thing that can bring security to the Israeli citizens is to stop the occupation and to have a real political agreement, not a forced political agreement on the other side because they are under occupation. I think we are very clear. We are going to fight against this annexation.
But you have to see the reality. The reality is.
I'm seeing the reality, and I have a vision.
Look, I'm sure that agreement with the Palestinian is necessary to Israel as well as to the Palestinian. I'm sure that the peace agreement and a Palestinian state, I'm sure will be in the end, and it's good to the Palestinian.
What do you mean in the end?
It's good to Israel.
Meanwhile, nothing is left around.
But you can't close your eyes and don't see the reality around the world. The reality is that there is a lot of extreme Islam groups. Look what happened in Gaza.
Sorry, I have to finish my idea. Just a minute, Ram. I listened carefully to what you said, and I want to finish my idea. This is the problem. You are talking about the situation. Eventually, in the end, there will be a Palestinian state. You are not.
Am I the only one who lost Ida?
Yeah. No.
Oh, she's on mute. Okay.
I'm really sorry. It was a phone call. What I was saying is that if you continue to hope that eventually there will be a political agreement, there won't be any land left for a viable state. What you mean when you say a political agreement for a Palestinian state, the state you are talking about is going to be enclaves, it's going to be cantons if you continue. And the other thing that I'm really astonished about is that you are talking about villages in the Jordanian Valley. The Jordanian Valley is a Palestinian territory occupied in 1967. If you want to be internationally respected and internationally recognized, you have to recognize the fact that you are violating the international law by building settlements in these areas, by taking the land that do not belong to Israel. You are co-oping and you are cooperating with the Netanyahu's plan without paying attention or in intention. With that.
I told IPF we need 2 hours of discussion at least.
I know, but I just wanted to add one sentence. We are planning a big demonstration on the 6th of June to commemorate the 5th of June. And we are sending here invitation to everybody. We want to cooperate with everybody who believes that annexation is going to bury any possibility for peace.
I do want to let Ram respond to Aida. If you can do this really quickly in 2 minutes, because I want to get to Yair, who has to leave in 6 minutes. And then we'll go back to both of you because I have some questions from the audience. So let's do this. So Ram, really 2 minutes to response to Aida. And
I hope that the agreement with the Palestinians will be soon and not later. I believe it's possible. And I agree with you that we take this land in 67. This is a fact. You cannot argue about this. But I think that if the things are changed, and if both sides will come with a good willing, we can reach an agreement that everyone, not everyone get what he want, but everyone get enough to continue from here to the future. If you will start now with the Jordan Valley, and then you will talk about Jerusalem, all Jerusalem, with the Kotel inside, with everything, we will never reach an agreement. And I really want to have an agreement with the Palestinian. It's good to us, it's good to the Palestinian, but we need to speak without say we are not agreed to this, we are not agreed to this. This is a red line. No, there is no red line. There is a good willing that we need to come and sit and to reach an agreement that both sides can live safe and honest. And believe me, most of the settlement, if you ask me, cannot stay in the place that they are now, but there are some that will stay. For example, Gush Etzion and etc. If you say no, nothing will happen.
thank you, Ram. And I do just like a very quick follow-up on this, because it seems that even though you have disagreements about the past and what needs to happen, you are all against, Ram, including you, right? You're against unilateral legislated annexation, not as part of an agreement. You are. So then I want to turn it back to Yair, who is proposing a constructive.
I even go to be with her on the 1st of June.
So Yair, what is your plan? Because you don't have a lot of time. If this is a really credible threat, and we're talking about July 1st as a date.
I would like to say five short points. First of all, I entered politics because I want to prevent annexation. This is the main goal for joining the political arena. Second point, unilateral measures should be kept to security measures solely. There is no other reason to do anything unilaterally. Third point, the annexation should be the consequence of an agreement, bilateral or multilateral agreement alone. Fourth point, there is no significant importance of the Jordan Valley from a security point of view. If we want to keep the security of Israel, all it's needed is a special security regime in the Jordan Valley, and that could be implemented while cooperating with the Palestinians, with the Jordanians, and maybe with international forces. I think this is the much more constructive solution to the problem of the Jordan Valley. And the fifth point, that from security point of view, the ridge of Samaria is much more important than the Jordan Valley. And there we should have some sort of early warning measures in order to detect mainly cruise missiles from Iran, which is right now the main threat to Israel. I would like to say a few other things. We need to remember that the Jordan Valley is 30% of the land of Judea and Samaria, and it's about 60% of the free land for building for the Palestinians. So if you want to ruin any chance for future agreement with the Palestinians, the best recipe for that is to annex the Jordan Valley. So it's totally unacceptable from my perspective. I want to tell you that I work hard with the commanders for the security of Israel in the last year and a half. And I think we can explain today why from security perspective and also from economical perspective, it's wrong to annex Judea and Samaria, and why annexing just the Jordan Valley is nothing more than a cover for a full annexation. There is no way that, well, you know, even if you don't count the Palestinians very much seriously, there is no way that the Palestinians will accept this principle of very large annexation without, you know, without saying nothing, while staying quietly at home and just accepting, you know, the unilateral measure of annexation. It's a wrong assumption, and therefore we need to work hard to prevent this annexation.
Yes,
what can be done? Well, we need to work hard with the public. We need to work hard with any politician. We need to work, you know, in the public arena. There's no other way. I'm sure that internationally there will be a strong opposition to annexation. And right now we see the reaction of Europe, of the European Union, which is totally negative. I don't like to take, you know, internal problems of Israel and put them in the international arena. It's also wrong. So I would say that I don't see any positive aspect of annexation, just negative one. And I think it's not because we do something which is against the well-being of the Palestinians. It's just very, very bad to the well-being of Israelis.
Thank you, Yair.
Completely agree with you.
Sorry, I have to leave now. So thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us. Thank you for your constructive ideas and optimism going forward. And we, you know, thank you for the plug for CIS, our partner. Good night.
Thank you very much.
I have 100 more questions, really, but it's not fair. There's some people in the audience that are waiting patiently. If that's okay, I'll direct a few questions. One of them is for Ram. It's for you. It's a question by Isaac Hasson. Hi, Isaac. He's one of our IPF Atid leaders in San Francisco. And Alex is saying that he would have preferred that Gantz not join this government, but he understands why he did. With that being said, this is Isaac's writing, I'm very concerned that if there's another election within the next year or two and the centrist parties are fractured and the left remains weak, you will hand re-election to Netanyahu, potentially with a majority that supports immunity. Do you see any prospect of mending fences with Gantz and Ashkenazi?
Well, in election, you always know how you start, you never know how you end. It's a possibility, but we have to believe in what we believe. And we think that the policy of Netanyahu, that the unitary annexation, it's only one part of his damage policy. We need to stop him. Right now, we almost succeed. I believe that in 1 year or 2 years from now, more and more people in Israel will understand that this is not the right way. And I believe that in the end of the day, the center left in Israel will be large than the alternative to the right. I think that the Israeli Arab are much more involved today, and I'm very happy about that. And I think they are much more effective on the Israeli politics. And I think that I hope that they will change a bit, that it will be much easier to do with them more than we do today. But I think it will happen. I'm optimistic. And in the end of the day, there is 9 million citizens in Israel, Jewish and Arabs. And at the moment that we will have together more than 50% that vote again with the center left, we can have the opportunity to change the regime, and I believe it will happen one day.
So thank you, and this is a good segue for my question to Aida. That's a combination of my question and another question from the audience. Aida, you represent the joint list. It's now the largest faction in the opposition, but the leader of the opposition is not from your party. And what do you see as being the role of your party, the joint list in the opposition, and specifically in the campaign against annexation? And Michael Gross is asking on top, if the joint list, do you have an alternative peace plan that could be the basis for negotiation that the PA would accept now?
Okay. First of all,
speaking about this alternative that you spoke about, the need for alternatives. So what is the alternative?
Well, the alternative is a very easy alternative that has been on the table for many years. Even to start with the Arab initiative, that can be something. Our plan is, first of all, negotiations that can be leading to a real establishment of a Palestinian state on the borders of 1967. I think that if there is a need to very slight exchange of land, not population like it was suggested in the negotiations and agreed upon. If it will be agreed upon with the Palestinians, that's up. We are not the one who will be holding the negotiation with the state of Israel. But we believe without establishment of a Palestinian state on the borders of 1967, 4th of July 1967, with Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, as its capital, I don't believe that there will be a real peace that can come. Now, how we see ourselves in the opposition, and I heard Ram, he said, I wish they can change a little bit so that we can work more with the joint list. I think the joint list has gone very far in the last election when we gave our recommendation for Gantz. Although we know we were not sure we were a little bit, I have to tell you, we were cautious because we were not believing that he will go very far with that recommendation. We saw how he is hesitating. We saw that he is not really putting an alternative to what is happening in Israel, and it turned out that it was true. But our main goal was to really try to stop Netanyahu and not to give him any opportunity to continue to be a prime minister. This is what led our work. At least we are very clear with our targets. We are very clear with our agenda. We say it very clearly. We say that the continuous rule of Netanyahu is very dangerous, not only for the Palestinians, but mainly for the Israelis themselves, for the Jewish and Palestinian Israelis. I think that we are very clear with our opinion. Those who are sitting in the middle, in the center, in the situation where they are not very clear with their opinion, those who have to reevaluate. It's not by chance that we were the only political power who is sitting today in the opposition that raised its power in the last election. And we were the two candidates that the two seats that we gained were the main difference between Netanyahu and the prime minister position. That was the gap, the two seats. So I believe that we need to continue this policy, this politics of a real fighting opposition, clear with its agenda, with creating an alternative. Last election, we managed to have more than ever Jewish voters voting for us. If elections are going to happen today, I believe more Jewish citizens will be voting for the joint list because they are looking for a clear voice. They are looking for a clear vision. They are looking for a political home that is willing to do the fight. And the joint list is doing that and will continue to do it. I believe that with the new parliamentarian situation that was created with this government, our work in the parliament will be very, very difficult. It needs to be used mainly as a stage where we can talk to the public, Israeli public opinion through that, but our work should be mainly out there, publicly, with the different groups, trying to organize a real opposition coming from down up so that it can change the situation, because up in the parliament, it is going to be very difficult to influence any process.
Thank you. We're almost at the top of the hour. I want to go to Ram with a question, because, you know, in a sense, we're talking about annexation, but Israel is its worst economic crisis. There's a global pandemic out there. Is the subject of annexation, is it really what's critical now? And sort of the flip side of this, we've seen the really close coordination between Israel and the Palestinian Authority on one side, and we can talk about Hamas, it's indirect, but the Israeli coordination with the Palestinians. And I think this, you know, COVID-19 really illustrated to Israelis, including on the right, the need to have a partner on the other side, someone who can manage. We're talking about annexation on one hand, on the other hand, the Israeli government gives a loan that the Palestinians will never be able to repay of 800 million shekels to save the PA. What can be done on the Israeli side now, short of actual peace negotiations, which I don't think this government is going for, to support the stability of the PA, support the stability of the Palestinian economy? And of course, annexation is unhelpful, but what other steps can be made? And I think Aida will have another question for you in a moment.
If I understand the question correctly, I'm not sure, but look, I think that annexation is serving two people now. It's serving Netanyahu and people from the right wing of Israel, and it's serving President Trump that they want to win the election in the United States. I think that this the annexation now in this period of time, it's very bad for Israel. It's very bad to the economic of Israel, especially in this period of time, because I believe that there will be some sanctions from Europe, etc. The economic situation is really very bad. But if you allowed me, I want to add something about what my colleague say about the conflict here that we are sharing. We don't have a lot of argue between us, because I also think that the solution between the Israeli and the Palestinian is very important, both sides. But I expect, when I say that I hope that the joint party will change a bit, it needs to change, from my point of view, that to speak as an Israeli citizen, to speak about the conflict as an Arab, with the feeling and everything, it's fine, but from the place of Israeli citizen, because I don't see anything different between my citizenship and Touma citizenship. I think that we both Israeli citizen, and I want to have the same equal. I want that she will feel here like I feel here, but I want her to understand that Israel is a national Jewish state. It's established this way. It's not established as something else. But in this Jewish state, we must to see that everyone is equal. If we will achieve this, we can continue from here. But what I'm feeling that she's not feeling like I want her to feel, but of course it's right. I don't want to tell you what to feel. You feel whatever you like. But in one, I don't find the word to explain it. When I want the Arab citizen, and most Arab citizens, she said that a lot of Jewish vote for her party, and it's true. But much more Arab vote for a Jewish party, and this is good things for yes. Why you say no? Yes, more Arab vote for a Jewish party than Israel, and this is good. I want that the Jewish will vote to her, and I want Arab vote for us, and I want that everyone feel Israeli, and everyone feel about Israeli interest, and everyone wants that Israel will be strong, because we are not we don't live in Switzerland. We live in a very tough area, and we cannot close our eyes and say we are not. Yes, we are. We live in a very tough area, and we need to be strong, and we need to think about our security. And yes, we need to...
And you are contributing to make it even tougher by continuing occupation.
The occupation is bad for Israel.
I'm not arguing out of feelings.
I agree with you. I am against the occupation. I think that Israel lose a lot when we are sitting over there. I think that I think, and by the way, Kahol Lavan was talk about it. We need to separate for the Palestinian. We need to give the Palestinian a state. If there will be something in the other side that they can be a partner for that, we have to see that there is a partner for that, and we have to do that because it's good for them, it's good for us. I don't want this occupation. It's damaged us more than we think and more than we admit. But it's very difficult. Anyway, we are now in the same side on the position, and we will continue, and we will work together on the things that we agree about.
You know, if you bring up really interesting points, because of course there's no denial, and I think Aida does not deny it, that Israel is in a tough neighborhood. The question is, you know, this talk about annexation and Israel's steps and the continued conflict, it does jeopardize Jordan's stability. So it's not just the Jordan Valley, right? Jordan's stability. And if you talk about a buffer between Israel and Iran, it is Jordan. And plus undermining all those back channels that Israel, with you would call them the pragmatic Arab Sunni states, they're not going to get improved if Israel pursues these steps forward, right? So Aida's point about Israel contributing to the instability of the region cannot, I think, be be dismissed.
I agree. I think the annexation is very bad. It's very bad.
Yeah.
Very bad for Israel, and I will do all I can that it will not happen. With Touma, with Yair Golan, with everyone.
Aida, I'm going to get back to you in 1 second. There is a question for you, because you did mention before that as Israel is part of an agreement remains in the Jordan Valley, it should have settlements there. We have a question here that I think I'm curious if you can provide. It's a long question. We want a short answer. Saying the settlements on the Golan in 1973 provided no security from invasion. Those in the West Bank and formerly in Gaza were soft targets for terrorism and drew heavily on IDF's resources to guard them. So if we're thinking that there could be a failed Palestinian state, right? Why should we risk civilians instead of having a strong and legitimate state with a security partnership with Israel and have some sort of like the Philadelphia corridor between Israel and Egypt? What is the need to have civilians there? The security rationale is you as a security expert.
Look, I admit and I agree that the Jordan Valley is a Palestinian territory, but I think that that because what we saw in Gaza, because we understand what is the meaning of the Arab world, that from the east of Jordan. Because we know what is happened there, we understand that it is not something that we can say, okay, let's see, maybe it will be okay. It's very important for our security, and we, in agreement, we can find a way to see that everyone will be pleased in the end. It's not, look, this is one issue, the Jordan Valley. What about Jerusalem? If you ask too much, he said, no, all Jerusalem belongs to the Palestinians. That's right. I agree. You agree with me? So now we want that we will bring all Jerusalem back to the Palestinians. No, we have to see how we can solve the problem. The problem is difficult, but we need to solve it. We need to solve it by talking and by agreement, and to agree about it. But anyway, I have to go too. So
no, we appreciate you. We are Aida, final words, and we'll wrap her.
For 2 minutes? Ram, can you stay for 2 minutes?
Yes, for you, even 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. It's just because you mentioned how I feel and how I speak, and you wish that I can feel more Israeli. First of all, I think when we are talking, I don't know why when Arabs are talking, immediately there are feelings involved. We are talking politics, and I'm bringing here a political vision more than any of the feelings. Feelings, I can speak about them later. But if you are talking about the speaking as an Israeli is by adopting the mainstream discourse that exists in Israel, I think you are the one who don't want to see the reality. Israel, for 72 years, the different governments of Israel have been telling by practice and by policies the Palestinian citizens of Israel every day that we are not equal citizens. And now it's also by law that we are not equal citizens. And then we are
And we need to
demanded
change it. I
to
agree
behave
that we
as
need
a
to
full
change the law.
Israeli.
You're referring to the national state bill. I'm just saying for the
Yes,
audience.
Yes, yes,
of course we need
yes.
to change it. Of course.
What?
She knows that I agree,
We need to change, you saying that you need to change it.
Yeah, you want to change it, I want to cancel it. There's the
I agree to
difference,
cancel
because
it.
I don't see anything can prepare what is written there. But anyway, I believe that we've been pushed away, we've been marginalized, we've been told and dealt with as not equal citizens for 72 years. And we've been insisting, in my opinion, the fact that till today, we are voting, we are doing politics, we are insisting for equal rights, meaning we are trying to behave as equal citizens. It's not us who are not talking. But what you want to hear is more me adopting the mainstream Israeli, but not Israeli even, Zionist discourse. This is not going to happen ever. I'm promising you. This is not going to happen.
We will continue in the Knesset.
Right, you'll have time in the cafeteria.
This is the main issue. In the cafeteria.
Right.
Now,
So,
when it is reopened, we can have coffee.
Right. I want to thank you both and Yair, who had to leave early, for a fascinating discussion. We haven't spoken about the Haredi parties having as much economic power as both big parties, how it affects the, continuing integration of the sector that you represent, Aida, into the economy and society, and what does it mean for other Israelis that are facing this economic crisis. We will just have to do it again. I'd like to hand it back to Israel Policy Forum Board Chair Susie Gelman, who joined us late for some closing remarks. Hi, Susie. Thank you both again.
Erev Tov, Ram Toda, Aida, Shukran. And thank you so much to everybody who was on the call. Sorry I got to it late, but I will listen to the recording later. I want to thank all of our supporters on this call. Our work depends on your generous backing. So once again, if you've not done so already, please make a contribution at www.israelpolicyforum.org/giving. Your support makes these webinars and all of our educational programs and resources possible. Please stay tuned as we announce our upcoming speakers for this series on our Israel Policy Hub website, which is at www.israelpolicyforum.org/hub. As noted, a recording of today's program will be posted to the Israel Policy Hub website. I hope we'll see you again next Tuesday, May 26th at the usual time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, for the next installment in our Annexation Watch briefing series. For that program, we'll be joined by PLO Ambassador to the UK and former PLO Ambassador to the United States, Hussam Zomlot, for a look at the Palestinian perspective on annexation. The link to register for that program is ipf.li/May 26th. So remember, if it's Tuesday, it's an IPF webinar. Thank you all again for joining us, and be well.
Thank you.
Bye, Shira.
Bye, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.